When I saw this yesterday, listen, some people might not like it, but I love discussing these sort of things on this show because I like to get out in front of things. I don't necessarily care to be right, but there is something to being quote unquote first. Like, I don't care that other people did this topic weeks ago as well as me, but I do feel like I was the first person to point out the Max Crosby thing. And then everybody else followed. Not necessarily me, but maybe they were later to the story or later to the idea. So bear with me here when it comes to a NFL draft story, especially after last week when I did a lot of defending of Kyler Murray. I know sometimes people watch the show and they are like worried that I'm flip-flopping. Let me be abundantly clear. Kyler Murray is absolutely up for sale, but only so if you blow our socks off with an offer. Like $1 billion, a couple of firsts, a couple of seconds, like an insane haul. And people in the comment section will say, no team would ever do that. And I would say, okay, cool. Then he's not for sale. You don't want to overpay for him. We're not willing to give him to you. That's where I'm at with Kyler. Kyler is certainly good enough to be the Cardinals franchise guy. And the Arizona Cardinals should respect that he keeps them relevant. But this idea that he's not up for sale is insane because for a haul, he absolutely is. The analogy I used last week is if I had a home and it was really nice and I paid $500,000 for it and I loved living there, location was good, kids loved it, next to the school, all the good things, playground across the street from me. No, my house isn't up for sale. But if someone knocks on my door and gives me $1.5 million for it, guess what, honey? We're moving. So this idea that he can't be for sale, it is nonsense. But that's not what I'm kind of leaning towards when it comes to this story. And that's this. Yesterday, I saw on social media, and social media is a cesspool of sometimes nonsense. Sometimes I don't even believe whatever the bleep is going on. And this kind of falls into that category. But Shedeur Sanders was making some headlines. Maybe for not the very good reasons. I would argue for bad reasons. But yesterday I saw this, and I could believe it to a very minor detail. And here's where it goes. It said, Shedeur Sanders is reportedly, quote, not the type of quarterback the majority of NFL teams are looking for right now, according to Mel Kiper Jr., ESPN draft analyst. He is the lead draft guy for ESPN. He's on there every year for 4 straight days, does the NFL draft coverage, and then goes away for the rest of the year. One NFL scout reported believes Sanders' true value lies somewhere between picks 15 and 30 in the first round. If his name was Shedeur Williams, we'd be having a totally different conversation. Anonymous NFL executive. Scouts are currently divided on Shedeur, with some giving him high-end comps to Tom Brady, while some are giving him a larger frame Teddy Bridgewater at his ceiling. Not to mention, some NFL teams are having concerns centered around Sanders' priorities and character. All right. So right off the bat, the Cardinals are drafting pick 16, and you see that his true value lies in 15 to 30. Here's the problem with that one quote. True value lies 15 to 30. Quarterbacks' true value never actually goes exactly where they're drafted. They almost always get drafted an insane amount higher than they probably should. I mean, Jackson Dart is a guy that I've repeatedly said on the show, man, I like his arm, like his mobility, big kid, strong. Second or third round, I could definitely buy into him as the Cardinals' potential succession plan to Kyler Murray. But if he's not there, then whatever, you go somewhere else. You do have Kyler. But quarterbacks fly up draft boards. If Jackson Dart was a top 10 pick, I would be 0% surprised, but about 50% disgusted because that's an insane proposition to ask for a guy like Jackson Dart to be a part of. But the Shedeur Sanders thing is interesting because if the rumors are true, and I'm not necessarily sure I believe them because rumors are just that, and things get out, if somebody wants it out. And even my guy, Michael, in the chat is saying he'll be gone way before 16. Sure, probably true. And I'm not going to sit here and explain to you why I think that he's 1,000% going to be a top, or he's going to fall in this draft. But let's just explore the avenue. If Shedeur Sanders falls to 14, 13, maybe even 12, or he falls all the way to 16 as a whole, would you consider trading up a few spots for Shedeur Sanders? Would you consider drafting him at 16 and say he does fall that far? Because I don't think it would be, I do think it would be insane for him to fall that far, but I don't know if it would be completely unheard of. We've seen quarterbacks fall before, and we've repeatedly said it's not a great quarterback draft. It's just solely not. So Shedeur Sanders, I would draft him or trade up 1 or 2, potentially 3 spots and draft Shedeur Sanders as the Cardinals' next franchise quarterback. Now, oftentimes people take that as I hate Kyler Murray, which is not true. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. He's probably nothing more than that, and he keeps them relevant. And I don't want to see Kyler walk out the door just to walk out the door. There needs to be something in place. And what Shedeur Sanders does is probably have the same ceiling as Kyler. A good player, but he's also a bigger and stronger kid. That's something Kyler doesn't have. He has mobility in the pocket, he's accurate, and also I just think he's kind of a winner. And he plays really well. He plays the position with confidence. I like his ability to come in, stabilize the quarterback position for the Arizona Cardinals, and not only that, but he resets your quarterback pay clock, where you're not paying him anything for 5 years. Imagine the team you could put around him. Imagine all the money you have this year, which is like $50+ million or something insane. Imagine if you add the fact that you won't be paying a quarterback to that fold. Shedeur Sanders does make a decent amount of sense for the Cardinals if he falls to that pick, or if you only have to trade up a couple of spots, probably no more than 3, because you don't want to give up an insane amount of draft capital for someone that we know probably isn't an elite prospect, Andrew Luck level prospect. He's probably not that guy. But his ability to move around in the pocket, be accurate, win games with kind of a subpar Colorado roster outside of Travis Hunter, and reset that quarterback cap situation clock where you're not paying him anything, I would explore that avenue if I was the Arizona Cardinals. And I think it's kind of crazy for people just to dismiss that. Now, is Shedeur going to fall that far? No, probably not. But what I'd like to do is get ahead of these things, is talk about them so that later on, if it happens, we're not behind. And so Shedeur Sanders to the Arizona Cardinals, I don't think is an insane pipe dream story. Cam Ward is clearly seen as the number 1 guy, and he's not even this elite level prospect that some think Shedeur Sanders should have been. It's just not a good quarterback draft. But 1.5 quarterbacks tend to work out in the NFL draft each and every year. And Shedeur Sanders, if he falls in what I believe his true value range is, which is like a late first-round pick, but because of quarterback inflation, he's almost always going to go way higher than that. I think that it is an interesting situation to explore for the Arizona Cardinals, and I would absolutely do it, especially if he fell to 16, or if you only had to give up a third-round pick and your first-round pick for someone else's pick 13 or pick 12. That's where it makes sense for me, and that's what I would do if I was the Arizona Cardinals. Because as much as I do like Kyler, and before I was a huge Kyler stan, reset the quarterback clock for a bigger, not a faster, but a bigger, stronger guy with still a lot of mobility, I like that avenue. And the idea of potentially putting a real massive elite team around him because of all the money you'd have is an interesting place to be.